I got the meeting on the calendar, and I'll be honest, I was actually up for promotion too. And people were
Okay.
finding out if they were getting promoted the same day that these layoff announcements.
No, what a
So
mind
I
F.
got I got the calendar invite, and I was like, "Okay, well, this is gonna go one of 2 ways. I'm either getting promoted, which would be awesome, or I'm gonna get laid off." And I just had a feeling for me to, like, get laid off, it wasn't even like, "Oh, I'm getting laid off." It was like, "Oh, they're deprioritizing this work too." So that was, like, the saddest part of it
Yeah.
all. That has given me some fire under me, and I think I'm treating this, like, in-between stage. I've defined it as the meaningful middle, and I think it's flipping the script of the messy middle. I think a lot of people talk about that a lot when they are going through, like, that career transition,
Yeah.
especially after a layoff. You're navigating uncertainty, you're trying to figure out what's next, and I think messy middle is often said very lightheartedly. I think people mean well when they say it, but I do think it sort of reinforces this idea that it's something to survive and push through as fast as possible. And for me, I was like,
Mm.
how can I turn this experience on its head and find meaning in it?
Life's too short for bad coffee or bad leadership. I'm Lindsay Yellen, executive leadership coach, coffee enthusiast, and former ad VP turned believer in leading from a place of possibility. On Unfiltered Leadership, we skip the buzzwords and dig into the messy, human, and powerful side of leadership with real conversations and practical takeaways. Now grab your mug. Let's dive in. What if getting laid off from the job you love was actually the moment you finally started writing your story? Kelly Nash has spent 11 years at Salesforce, building career development programs and guiding thousands of employees through major transitions. And then she found herself in the exact moment she'd spent her career coaching others through. She was laid off from a job she genuinely loved, which sounds all too familiar these days. She is the creator of career authorship, and today we are getting into the raw, real human side of what it looks like to practice what you preach when everything shifts. When you're navigating uncertainty and fear, when it comes to your navigating and managing your career, we get into all of that, all right? So grab your mug, cozy up. I have been so excited for this conversation, and I know it will resonate with you. It's time to get unfiltered with Kelly. Hey, Kelly, welcome to Unfiltered Leadership. I am beyond thrilled that you are here with me today.
I am beyond thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me.
How are you doing back in my hometown, Chicago? How's it going over there?
Very, very well. I mean, we are having, I feel like, the most perfect weather this week and into next. So I am enjoying it. I'm spending as much time as possible outside and just getting that vitamin D while I can.
Yeah, summer arrived for you. It is like we get June gloom here in the Bay and on the coast. So it is, and it's coming. It's like cloudy and chilly and rainy. So my mug today, I chose like a very earthy, kind of
Ooh.
cozy mug. I choose to get grounded. It's like different. Actually got this in Portland, which also is like very similar vibes to where we are now, where I am right now. And it's like all these different clay colors that she like put together. Like this isn't paint, this is like clay that was like, anyways, I always think it's so cool. And I wanted to feel really grounded for our conversation today. So I chose it, and it's full of very delicious coffee from Black and White Roasters called Gummy Bears. That's the name of the coffee.
That's
It's like they do like really wild coffees, and it's like fruity and tastes like watermelon and raspberries.
interesting. Well, I love the
Mhm.
mug and I love the groundedness, the earthiness to it. Those are good grounding colors.
All right, tell me about what's in your mug today.
I got some black coffee. I don't know what kind of coffee it is. My husband is the one that makes the coffee in our household. I just drink it. And it's in my future best-selling author mug that I got years ago as a little manifestation tool for myself to keep in mind while I write my own book of my own.
Well, that feels very fitting for our conversation today. And
Yeah.
where do you stand now in terms of bringing that manifestation, that dream to life of becoming an author?
It is a work in progress, and I'm sure we'll get into it in this conversation. But yeah, I've been writing a book since 2019. So what, 7 years now? So it's a labor of love. But I am taking my time with it because it's been something that's been on my heart since I was a little girl. I've always wanted to write a book of my own. Joe, the main character in Little Women, was always my inspiration. So she continues to be. And I do believe in the power of manifestation. So that's why I saw that mug and I was like, I gotta get it.
This is for me. Okay, in one sentence, if you're willing to share, what is your book about?
One sentence.
Okay, two.
I would call it like a self-motivation memoir in a sense. So it's really owning the pen and helping you move away from this unconscious disconnection with yourself toward a conscious reconnection, so that you can get to this place of reclamation of your full authentic self. So
Yes.
it's really like this human journey of going from thinking you have to live someone else's life or actually living that life and doing the hard work of coming back home to yourself. So,
Yeah. Wow, the world needs that, and I feel so connected to what you just said because a lot of my coaching is exactly tied to that of, like, you feel, whether lost in your leadership, lost in your career, you feel, like you look around, you're like, "How did I get here?" Or, "I'm miserable," like, very similar to where I was, which perhaps I believe you can identify. Or you work with a lot of people who can, and it's like, before you can, like, figure all that out and before you can lead your career, before you can be leading others, you need to get back to how you lead yourself, and so it starts with, like,
exactly.
radical transformation through meaningful self-connection that changes the way you're able to connect with others and lead in a way that makes you proud, and yeah, so I will be pre-ordering that book as soon as it is available, and I feel like I'm gonna be like, "Yep, check, check, check," and, we might need to have a part 2 of this conversation just to talk about that.
Yes, let's. We can get that on the calendar.
And I think a lot of that will probably sprinkle in here as we dig in, and well, thank you for sharing,
Mhm.
and, I'm continuing to cheer you on as you bring your dream to life, and the world needs it. So,
Thank you.
where I wanna get us started is, Kelly, can you give us, like, a little, um, background headlines of, like, your career that got you to where you are today? Specifically, like, take us in to the moment a few months ago when you did get laid off. And yeah, bring us up to speed here and tell us your
Yeah,
story.
shit's real. Shit's
Shit's
getting
real.
real. I started my career in advertising and it was something that was shiny and exciting and I loved every minute of it until I didn't. I got super burnt out from it and then
Yeah,
I pivoted from ad agency life to ad sales and again really great opportunity but then quickly found myself getting bored. And I'm someone who is always looking for a challenge and wanting to grow my skill sets and all of that jazz. So I decided I wanted to move into the tech industry. So I landed a job at Salesforce where I spent the last 11 and a half years of my career. And in that time had 7 different roles, including a pretty major career change. I moved away from client facing work to really helping our employees with their development and careers at the company. So that's kinda how I got into a lot of the workforce development work that I'm doing now, and then, career coaching was never on my radar, and I truthfully gave coaching the big eye roll when I first kind of heard about it, but now that I really understand the power of it, I obviously have a different perspective on it, but my career coaching journey began while I was actually at Salesforce. I decided to launch a career blog of my own, which is called Lipstick and Ink. And that was in 2018. And my whole goal with that was to empower young women specifically with honest career advice, practical resources, real stories. And I just felt this pull to share my experiences navigating the corporate world and just how I had overcome burnout and advocated for myself and made all these different career moves that aligned with my aspirations while I was like also sharing guidance that I wish someone had handed me a clear roadmap for.
yeah,
And then I was actually doing that work while I was writing it, while I was embedded in corporate. And I began creating the start of this portfolio career while actually writing about it because the blog, again, nothing I planned for, it's sort of snowballed into then hosting events and doing speaking engagements and offering resume rewrites. And then I kept getting the same question over and over again. Do you offer coaching? And I was like, no, I don't do this. It's not, I don't believe in it. Like, whatever. But then I was like, wait, so people keep asking me. I feel like this might be like a nudge from the universe that I maybe should
100%.
take a look into this. So
Uh-huh.
did go through the accredited coaching program, and then I opened up my LLC in 2022, started building my business as a career coach from there. Moral of the story here is that you can have a plan and a vision for what you want, in your career, your life, whatever. But I think it's also really important to be open to possibilities and what can come from it because you just never know really what can transpire. I never thought or planned to own a business, but here we are. And I'm glad I did. And the reason being is what you mentioned. I did get laid off earlier this year, and I very much appreciated the fact that I had a business and brand that I could lean on. And I love that I have the diversification in how I show up in my career and how I can bring in income. Like I'm not just relying solely on that corporate job. And so now I'm in this like in between of figuring out what's next for me. Like full transparency, I don't know what the next chapter looks like for me. I'm looking at my business as more of a business than a side hustle at this point and identifying new ways that I can serve my individual coaching clients, but also organizations and bring the workforce development work I was doing at Salesforce into other companies that may be struggling with engagement and retention, internal mobility. Like these are real issues companies are having right now,
Yeah.
especially with AI in the mix. So there's a lot of people that are feeling very disconnected from their work. And I think also wondering, is AI going to impact my job?
Yeah.
So that is a long winded story of how I got to be where I am. But
Beautifully told.
yeah.
And thank you for sharing and taking us through that. And I just was sitting here, folks that are listening and not watching, just like nodding along because there is a lot of parallels that I can really identify with the starting in advertising, the feeling like it's this shiny, exciting, fast paced thing that can easily convince you that it like runs your life until you kind of realize, oh, wait a minute, like it doesn't need to be this way. And the burnout and the wanting something different and being open to possibilities. I one thing I share a lot in what you were saying of like be open, you don't know where your career is going to take you, but if you're not open to it, you can miss it, right? Miss
Yeah.
those kind of opportunities. I like to think of a metaphor of like trains and like I just saw very clearly like when I was in advertising climbing the ladder because I got quite senior and I just saw that I knew the train I was on. I saw the track. I knew exactly where it was going. And I was like, I don't wanna be on this. This doesn't feel right for me. Something is not right anymore here. Like, I've overstayed my welcome and what's right for me and what, feels most aligned, but also where I can have the greatest impact, but, like, I don't know what to do. Um, but I saw coaching as, like, this other train kinda passing, and it was just like, "Okay, I can jump onto this train to see where it leads." I'm not, like, totally leaving the world of advertising, but I'm starting to explore. I'm stepping onto a path that could
Mhm.
open up like, take me somewhere new that I don't know what it is, like, am I open to that? And then I jumped onto that train, and then similarly, even in a smaller, different way, when the barista opportunity came up, it was like, am I gonna really start spending part of my time, like, working at a coffee shop? Like, I'm so passionate, seems so fun, like, yeah, like, what does coaching and coffee look like? I'm now gonna jump on that train. So I love to think of it that way of, like, you're just jumping onto that next thing that you don't know exactly where it lives, but if it feels interesting and secure and exciting enough, and there's possibilities there that are lighting something up, like, make the jump, see where it takes you.
And I feel like the common theme between your story and mine is the curiosity. And I think a lot of people talk about like follow your passion and there's a time and a place for that advice, I think, but I'm always telling people follow your curiosity and then like also trust those inner nudges and that trusting your intuition because again, those little signs from the universe can lead to
Yeah,
big things that you never would have expected.
and you need to get to a place where you are open to receive them, but,
Yeah.
also not so focused on having to know all the answers or thinking 10 steps down the line where you get paralyzed about, like, "What am I gonna do? What's that gonna look like? I can't figure that out. I don't know." It's like, what about just, like, the next right thing? Focusing on
Mhm.
the next right thing and get yourself into the right place so you can be in a place of curiosity and connection and seeing where that goes. But I want to I want to bring us back a little bit to your story and I want to go I'm hoping you can take us back to that moment when you found out that you were being laid off. And what was that what was that like for you? What did you feel? What was going through your mind? And what was the experience a few weeks and even months after that of navigating that moment? Because there's so many people listening that are either worried about that or navigating it themselves.
1,000%. I mean, I saw a stat the other day, 130,000 people in the US alone have lost their jobs this year. So it's a real thing, and I've coached people through this, and now I'm living it myself, and it's it's so woo and so odd, but the 2 nights before I found out I got laid off, I had dreams I was getting laid off.
No way.
I kid you not, and then that morning I got laid off, I was wearing a Salesforce sweatshirt, of all things. So
Of
it's just
course.
very poetic in a
Yeah.
way. Um, I got the meeting on the calendar, and I'll be honest, I was actually up for promotion too. And people were
Okay.
finding out if they were getting promoted the same day that these layoff announcements.
No, what a
So
mind
I
F.
got I got the calendar invite, and I was like, "Okay, well, this is gonna go one of 2 ways. I'm either getting promoted, which would be awesome, or I'm gonna get laid off." And I just had a feeling, again, because of the premonitions I had and just the state of the team that I was on, I was like, "This is gonna go in the direction that is not ideal." But I think because I was almost expecting it in a way, it didn't shock me. Like, I didn't have that initial shock of like, "Oh my gosh, this is happening." It was just like, "Okay, this is happening." Like, and I went immediately into like problem solving mode.
Yeah.
Just like,
Yep.
"Okay, how can I navigate this clearly, but responsibly?" And so I went through my finances that week. I was like doing like checking all the boxes, but at the same time, I was like, I feel like a responsibility to be there for my team that were also most of them were also laid off. And
Oh,
the reason being is because I was the sole person in our organization of 9,000 people that was running employee engagement and employee development programming and events and things like that for our employees. And so like I felt like I was like the face and voice of the employee in our organization. So for me to like get laid off, it wasn't even like, "Oh, I'm getting laid off." It was like, "Oh, they're deprioritizing this work too." So that was like the saddest part of it
yeah.
all. But again, I felt this due responsibility because of the work I had been doing to really just be there for my team. So I leaned into that quite a bit that first couple weeks, and then I was like, "Okay, well, maybe this is my sign to maybe go deeper with my business." So like I took months, like the last 3 months really, to really dissect my business as like, okay, this is maybe not no longer a side hustle. This could be a real business. Like what changes do I actually have to make to do that and make this happen? So I've been very much in build mode and rebuild mode, but that has given me some fire under me, and I think I'm treating this, like, in-between stage, I've defined it as the meaningful middle, and I think it's flipping the script of the messy middle. I think a lot of people talk about that a lot, when they are when they are going through, like, that career transition,
Yeah.
especially after a layoff. You're navigating uncertainty, you're trying to figure out what's next, and I think messy middle is often said very lightheartedly. I think people mean well when they say it, but I do think it sort of reinforces this idea that it's something to survive and push through as fast as possible. And for me, I was like,
Mm,
how can I turn this experience on its head and find meaning in it and really use this time to the best of my ability to not rush through it and use it as an invitation to like slow down and reflect on who I am and what I actually want, so that way the choices that I'm making are actually intentional in how I'm showing up and where I'm hoping to grow. So that is really the messaging I've been putting out there too for everyone that else is going through this experience is like try not to rush the process, really sit with it, process it, reflect, rest, and then take this time, this invitation of space, energy, and time to really figure out who you are beyond that role title and like what it is you actually want to do.
mhm. And what I notice is, and tell me from your experience, like it's very often after a moment like that that we can feel super dysregulated and go to like a fight or flight place and just trying to solve and fix and feel safe again as in the way that we know is safety, right? Security and like claw for that. And for some people it's very real, like that is a requirement in order to
Mhm.
be to provide for family, to there's a lot of realness there. However, I think like what in your opinion, what gets lost when you go to when you respond from a place of fear-based reactivity versus that kind of, like, slowing down, connecting to self, kind of greater curiosity that we were talking about?
I mean, I feel like the processing gets lost, and I think a lot of people try to run away from it because they don't wanna face it,
Mm,
right? And especially as high achievers, the people that I coach too, and I identify as a high achiever, like, we are always in this mindset of like we need to keep producing and go, 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 do more, be more. And I think that's the natural reaction to your point when someone gets laid off is like, okay, I need to go start updating my resume. I need to start sending out all these applications because that feels like the most logical thing to do. And I think it does give people that sense of control. But I think what's lacking in a lot of that when you are in that fear based mindset is the clarity, right? And I think you have to process the grief, the emotions you're going through to get to that point of clarity. And the work that I do is like I'm trying to get people to understand like who are they at their core and like what it
yeah,
is they actually want versus like how are you going to get the next job? And I think people just
mhm.
go immediately to how am I going to get the next job before doing the really deep inner work that they more often than not actually need.
And you talked about, like, processing the emotions, as part of that and, like, facing them and being with it. I think I talk about a lot of, like, in those hard moments, like, yes, messy middle, meaningful middle is, like, such a powerful reframe, but I think of it as, like, you're sitting in the muck, and it's uncomfortable, but, like, you
Mhm.
gotta be in it for a bit, like, you're
Yeah.
not like, sometimes I think I just said this to a friend yesterday. Sometimes when you're in the muck, sometimes you gotta mop, and you're able to clean it up, and you're able to move forward, but then sometimes you're just using a dirty rag, just smearing it around, and, like, you feel like you're just, like, in it forever, but it's all part of the process, but one of those emotions, and I know that is very prevalent, like, there's a certain type of particular grief that comes when you're losing a job, especially one that you genuinely loved and that you
Mhm.
found meaningful. Um, what was that grief like for you, and what do you see in people that you work with?
The grief was real for me because I genuinely did love the work that I was doing, and
Yeah,
I felt like I was making a meaningful impact on our employees. I got that a lot from people throughout the days, so that really kept my work going and kept me going even when the days were hard. So, the grief was real, and I really had to come to terms with I didn't have a choice in this, but I made the choice to take this role because I wanted to do impactful work, and I felt like I did that. And so, with the chapter closing, I felt at peace that I did what I wanted to do, and unfortunately, the
mhm,
chapter was closed before I wanted it to be.
yeah,
But I came at peace with it because I'm like, maybe this is a sign that I need to focus my efforts somewhere else, right? That maybe needs
mhm,
my work more, or that will value it more, right? And for me, how did I process it? I mean, I'm a journaler, I'm a writer, so like I journaled a lot and I tried to just like get out in nature as much as possible. Just again, coming back to the grounding aspect of how we started this conversation, just trying to like ground myself in nature, that really helped. But yeah, I think for me, because I had built something of my own on the side, I didn't feel this like attachment to
yeah,
my role or the company as much as I would have if I hadn't. And the people that I coach through layoffs, like oftentimes are those that have their identity wrapped up with their company, right? Like
yeah,
I did coach someone last year who had been at a company 15 years. Like that company was her identity. So we had to do a lot of deep processing work for her to like really work through that and to overcome that. So again, and everyone's process looks different and it takes however long you need, right? So my processing took a few weeks, like some others might take months. It really depends. And so the way I work with my coaches is or coachees rather is I meet them where they are and I honor whatever they need in that moment. And if it takes longer than they anticipated, then it does, but they have to go through that and process that grief before they can really officially move forward.
yeah, and I think that, that's it's so interesting, but also I think there's more awareness coming, but this type of grief, I think, has often been dismissed, and it has been like, "Well, is there really grief with this? Like, it's just a job, or you find another one." Like, I think luckily there's more light being shined on it, but it's so true that a job isn't just a job, especially for people who are high achieving. There is so much identity. There is so much, especially when you feel like your value and your worth is tied up to what you produce,
Yes.
what you do, what you achieve. And that gets taken away from you and you're left being like, oh wait. And then was it was it me? Does that mean this is a reflection on my ability? My worth, my work, my talent? What did I do wrong? And even the folks that don't get laid off, like there's like the grief too of watching that happen around you or losing trust in a company that you're like, wait, how could you just
Mhm,
do this? Like
mhm.
it's a complex web of a very human experience that deserves the time um to understand. And that is like the beginning, as you said, of like the healing process and reconnecting to yourself now in this new reality.
Yeah, and I think the only silver lining, I think, with these mass layoffs is that I'm starting to see this myself, is that people aren't asking that question, "Was it me?" Like, because there's so many people getting laid off right now, like, it's not even a question anymore, it's like, "Oh, it's just the
Yeah.
institutions
Yep.
making these poor choices and laying off really great workers." So, I
Yeah.
think that helps, I think, take that piece away to know that it wasn't you, it wasn't your fault, it wasn't personal, more than likely, it was just a business decision that these companies made, but I mean, the reality is like these businesses decisions continue to be made, and it's leaving a lot of people in fear. The people that have been laid off, like fear, am I going to get another job? Am I going to be able to do the work that I actually want to do? And then, like to your point, the people that are left behind, they're in fear. Am I next?
Yeah. Yeah. And that what I've noticed is that really can change the way people their relationship to the work, to the company, to their and it's like then we become consumed by leading ourselves from a place of fear and uncertainty and always kind of watching the back. And
Mhm.
then what does that do to the work? What does that do to our ability to be open to possibility? Because if you're leading yourself by fear, then something's got to go. And that curiosity, that connection, that like living life from a place of possibility, there's not as much room for that in capacity because we're in more of a survival mode.
1,000%. I mean, that is exactly why I felt so passionate about the work that I was doing at Salesforce, because I was trying to answer those questions for those people and, like,
Yeah.
give them the on-ramp to possibility of what comes next, right? And that's what I'm hoping to do as I move
Yeah.
forward, whether in another corporate setting or, in an organization where I'm doing freelance or fractional work, to like bring that into the workplace and help alleviate some of this fear that people are feeling, and help leaders, share with their teams like there is possibility here. This is how, and this is how you can get there, because a lot of that is not always happening because they don't have those answers.
And that, like, sparks something that I talk about with folks like yourself all the time, and that's how do leaders who are leading teams during times of uncertainty that don't have the answers but wanna be transparent, wanna show up for them, what would you tell them? Like, what can they do?
It's such a loaded question.
I know.
I
Well, I
mean,
get
this
it.
might
To
go
give you
ahead.
background, I, like with so many of my clients, especially ones in creative industries and in a lot of these volatile environments are like, how am I supposed to motivate a team when I'm not motivated? How do I reassure a team when I'm not reassured? How do I show up for a team and instill confidence when I'm not feeling confident? Like, how do I continue to lead and show up and give them answers when I don't have answers? And I feel like that's like the $1,000,000 question these days.
Yeah, because there has to be a balance. Like I'm all for like authentic leadership where those leaders are being completely honest with their employees, but
Right.
you also don't want to go into the territory where you're being too honest and then you're just playing into their fear at the same
Exactly.
time, and they're looking to you as their leader to like steer the ship. So I think it is holding close some of the things you maybe not are not relevant to say to your teams, but being aware that they are realities, while also being as transparent and honest as possible and showing that you're a human too at the end of the day and like you're navigating this alongside them. I think that really goes a long way when leaders can show empathy towards their people
Yeah.
and be as honest as they can with the constraints of their role. I think that just goes a long way.
A couple things I think about, and I couldn't agree more. And like one is like vulnerability invites vulnerability. In this moment, it most likely people are just want to feel heard and feel less alone in this difficult,
Mhm.
uncertain situation. So as a leader, if you feel safe to do so, like how do you extend that first? Share, like you said, here's my experience, here are my feelings, here's what I'm going through. You are not alone. And if there's that little bit of vulnerability in what you're navigating and your relationship to it, others might meet you there. They're going to feel less alone. They're going to feel safer, and can create an environment of connection through the uncertainty. But also, and this goes back to what you were saying of, who are you now and how do you move forward from like a place of awareness and self connection? And a lot of work I do and what I guide leaders towards in this moment is your values. So the more you can understand your values and what's important to you, how do you use those as a lens and how you show up in these moments of uncertainty that can be really dysregulating and scary, but you want to do yourself proud and really show up for the people? How does your, you know, value of respect come into play? If how do you respect yourself in the moment, but then how do you respect the people in front of you? If you
Yeah.
have a value of connection, then how do you believe you can connect with the people in front of you to honor what's important to you? So losing their values as a lens, I have found helps kind of steady them and it gives them at least a framework or some perspective to help them find a way forward.
And help their teams. Because I feel like
100%.
I mean, that's the work I do with individuals is like getting back to their values and what's most important to them and what's actually guiding their choices. And I think if leaders are doing that for themselves, but then can also turn around to their teams and center them on that, right? That can kind of keep them focused on what is most important to them, even if they're encountering, restructuring or a lot of change within their teams or their environments, what have you. I think leaders need to be opening up that space, right? And acknowledging the realities and not only coming to the table and saying this is my experience again to relate to them because I do think that is 1,000% important. But like giving them the space to acknowledge how they're feeling in that safe space
Yeah.
too.
Creating that environment of safety and trust. Um, and also with the values, what just occurred to me too is like when everything is so unsteady out there, as a leader, they're looking for you to be the steady, right? To be like the calm in the storm, even if you
Mhm.
don't have the answers, even if you can't reassure them or make any promises, how do you remain steady as like kind of that touch tree despite everything else going on? And a way to keep yourself steady or to show steadiness is to be consistent. And your values is something that you can that if you are able to be consistent and connected to your values, that's going to create confidence and steadiness amongst your team. They're going to know what to expect from you. They're going to understand who you are, what you stand for, and then you're giving them permission to do the same for themselves as well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. And just being open to listening to them
Yeah.
actively.
Yep. Listening more than like going back to curiosity. The answer, Kelly, always is curiosity. Yeah, for some reason, it's like the hardest thing, especially leaders in corporate to do, but it always comes back to that, right?
It sure does.
Okay, I have so many questions about this back to you. I'm trying to think of which one I want to ask first. Okay, I guess what are your values and how are they guiding you right now?
Oh, man. Well, that's I have a lot of words floating in my head right now. Family is very important to me, and it's not a value that I would have put at the top of the list a couple years ago, but now that I have my son and we have our own little family unit now, I mean, I'm trying to be intentional about how I spend my time, right? And like whatever comes next, if it is me going full time in my business or taking on another corporate job and still running my business on the side, like my family is a non-negotiable. So that time is precious to me. And I'm I'm not gonna negotiate that time with them.
Yeah.
So that is top of mind for me. Growth is a value of mine. I always wanna be learning and again, kind of following that curiosity. So I feel like I'm learning things every day, building my business and learning about the impacts of AI in the workplace and how I can help, support that or not. Integrity is a big value of mine too. Like if I say I'm gonna talk the talk, I walk the walk. And
Oh.
I'm a manifester, human design, and one of the things about manifestors are like
I'm a
you
manifestor
learn.
too.
You are?
Yes. Okay, sorry. I've just
Okay.
never really been in community with other manifestors. Okay, keep going.
But we learn by doing and like
Yeah.
sharing our learnings with others. So like I'm really tapping into that. I'm like, okay, I'm going through a layoff. Like I'm gonna share my story. People can resonate with what I'm going through and like learn from my experiences and vice versa, right? So integrity is really important to me. If I'm going to say something, I'm going to do something. What else? I'm trying to think what else. I mean,
Well,
authenticity, vulnerability is another big one for me. I'm always keeping it real. I
you do.
don't fake anything. I wear my heart on my sleeve. So again, with this layoff, I've been very open and honest about how I've been processing it and going through it. And I've been able to like connect with a lot of people because of that too.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've been following along, with like bated breath of like all your updates and your relatability, and you are always like very authentic. Like the way you're able to connect with people and share your story from a place of such heart, but also wisdom and groundedness
Thank you.
is a gift, right? And speaking of your value of growth, I'm curious, what have you learned about yourself in this experience that maybe you weren't able to learn in 11 years at a company that you loved?
I I think to trust myself. I mean, I feel like through periods of uncertainty, you have to come back to trust. And I
Yeah.
think that's easy to say when you're in a place where you're in a secure environment. Like I have a lot of trust in my role and how I'm growing with the company. But I would even argue now like that trust a lot of the times is broken because of all this restructuring and layoffs happening at the macro level. But I think especially when you're in a period of transition, you have to trust that you're gonna figure it out and you're gonna do the damn thing and what will be, but that's what I'm doing. I'm like, I don't know how I'm writing this next chapter, but I trust that it's gonna be a good one.
How have you learned to trust yourself? What does it feel like?
I don't even know. Um, I think because when I look back, especially in the career choices I've made, they've all been leading to a more intentional place. Like,
Yeah.
I've trusted my gut through every decision, and one key moment comes to mind. So, like, a couple years ago when I was, like, debating about finding a more employee-focused role because I had been doing client work for, 10, 12 years, I was like, "I wanna do something in the corporate space that I'm doing with my coaching clients. I wanna develop people and be there for them through that process," and I landed this, like, employee engagement role at Salesforce, and it was gonna be an internal, lateral transfer, and I remember my skip level manager at the time cautioning me, and she's like, "Kelly, I know this sounds great, this aligns with what you wanna do, just be careful because you're moving away from the business, like, you're getting farther away from our customers, and your role may be more at risk." And I knew that definitively, just because of the state of corporate. But I was like, I just have a gut feeling that I need to take this role. Like, it's what I need to do and what I want to do. And I did. And then 2 months later, majority of that team that I'd been on ended up getting laid off.
Wow.
Right.
Yep.
So, I mean, I could have been in this position 3 years ago. And who knows where I'd be at that point. But I look back and I'm like, I'm so glad I listened to myself and trusted myself in that because it allowed me to do this career change within a company and reposition myself away from being client facing to being employee focused and then infuse that back into my business, create and elevate my brand as I have been. And it completely changed the career trajectory that I had. And even though I did get laid off 3 months ago, I'm still glad I made that decision.
Yeah. And I feel like that story and the idea of self-trust is actually beautiful transition to, your work and what you've built around career authorship. Is that
Mhm.
safe to say?
Yeah.
Can you tell me more about it and what it means and how to take back your own story?
Yeah, so career authorship is this belief that I have that high achieving professionals have the right and the responsibility to take intentional ownership or authorship of their career story. Because I have found a lot of people are operating in the space where they're letting others dictate that story or they're letting circumstances dictate that story and are not really owning the pen to do it themselves. And so career authorship is really this inside out process of moving from a career written by conditioning and other people's expectations to one that's authentically yours.
Yeah. And how are you noticing this time we're in? Do you believe that it's lending it to more people being open to authoring their own story or falling back more into the safety of quote unquote safety of the conditioned expectations?
I feel like it totally depends on the person, right? Like I talk to people that are like, I'm gonna stay in my corporate job even though I'm miserable because it gives me the safety and security I need, right? Like that's a real thing and I don't blame people for that, but I also want them while they do have that secure and safe space to
Exactly.
be thinking about what they want next and
Yeah.
actually making intentional moves to do it while they have that income, right? Instead of just sitting there and waiting. It's
And
really
being
like
miserable.
can you pick up the pen even if you're a little miserable in your job, like and harness that in a different way towards something you actually do want,
Yep.
right? But I do think this whatever everything that's happening at a macro level is changing the job market as a whole, and I think there's a lot that's gonna change in the next couple years, and I think this idea of portfolio careers is gonna get only bigger from here because I think people are starting to realize, I can't really put my eggs all in one basket of one company. I can't trust them. I'm just a number, right?
I just wondering what is the mindset shift that needs to happen to get to a place of greater openness of building a portfolio career or deciding to take back the pen.
It's thinking I am the asset.
Tell me more.
It's really shifting your mindset from like, I am contributing to this company versus like, I am the contribution. Right? So thinking about it from the lens of how can I lend my value to where it's going to be served best and how I want it to be lended that way, right? So it's really taking matters into your own hands rather than putting it all into a company to decide something for you. So it's diversified, it's intentional, it's balanced around life's changing circumstances because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And the thing is like the script can change, like you can get laid off, but you are in charge of your story and the story that you build and tell versus again allowing one single company to dictate it for you.
Such a different posturing. Talk about self trust, but also confidence
Yeah.
of what you have to offer, the value you bring, and that's not defined by anybody else. You actually have choice there. And I think we go through and climb the ladder of they tell me when I'm ready for promotion, then I know that I'm good enough. They're telling me what I'm capable of. It's like taking back that control and agency.
Yeah, 1,000%. And yeah, I mean, the confidence isn't always there. Like sometimes you're faking it till you
So
make it.
true.
Like I kind of hate to use that phrase, but I've done that so much in my own career and I feel like sometimes you have to do things and take action before you are ready or before you're confident to do
Yep.
so. I
Well,
mean, you look at all those entrepreneurs, all the people that have built something of their own, they weren't 1,000% ready and confident right off the bat.
comes down to courage. Once again, the self-trust that can fuel courage.
Mhm.
People think, "Oh, I'll be confident and then I'll be able the confidence once I'm confident, I'll be able to do it." It's like, "No, actually you need to decide to do the work, take the action, believe in yourself, take that courageous act." and then the confidence comes. And then you're
Mhm.
just going through that. You're never confidence is never a place you arrive. It's just a journey that you're on where you're continuing to evolve and level up, I'd say.
That kinda
Mm.
comes back to my book that I'm writing too, because each chapter of my book is this courageous choice that you have to make before you can own the like, as you're owning the pen. Like, you
Yes.
can't just, like, pick up the pen and be like, "Okay, I'm ready to write my story." Like, there's intentional, courageous choices you have to make to get there.
Mm. So if you had to give the folks listening, like, a courageous action to take or, like, a prompt or just, like, something to move them on a path of courageous action of taking back the pen, what would that be?
I so another thing that I talk about is this career static, right? So, like, trying to minimize the noise that's around you, this like interference that's created from those borrowed scripts and like potentially reactive choices that you've made so that you can actually hear the signal of what you actually want. So you can tap into that intuition and curiosity. So I think you first have to like remove the static, remove the career static, and then really think long and hard and go back to your values like we were saying and think about what's most important to you and what's actually gonna give you that fulfillment and joy that you want not only in your career but your life, and then just being open and creative in how
Right.
you approach your career, because again, one, you might have a plan but like it might take you a completely different way, so just being open to like what that could look like. So that would be my best advice.
Practically, like, what are ways to quiet the static? What does that look like in practice?
So, I mean, again, it's going to look different for everyone and like how they are able to block out that noise. So, some ways to do that is journaling, like kind of like doing that brain dump of all the
Yep.
static that is in your head to just kind of like get it out there and on paper and like actually maybe like crumpling it up and like throwing it away or maybe setting it on fire within reason. It could be like getting outside. Again, I think nature is so healing and grounding. Again, coming back to the beginning of our conversation. So, whatever being outside looks like for you, going for walks, playing with your kid, whatever, I think that can do a lot to just clear that static too. And what else? I don't know, just doing things that you love, that can open up that space where you can be more creative
Yeah.
and open.
Tapping into that, like, calm, open to connection, regulated, curious, creative self is what I'm
Mhm.
hearing. And then wait, saying yes to although it might not be what you feel like you want to do or need at first, or might feel very hard to choose, but saying yes to the people, the places, the activities, to yourself so you can spend more time in that place to get to
Yep,
that right frequency to quiet the rest of that down.
yep.
And I guess one thing I'd build into that is like just starting and using that curiosity to question some of the thoughts or doubts or fears of like, what is really true here? What's a story? What's a story and belief here? Is that really coming from me and my wisest self? Or where did that start? Who is actually the voice behind that?
Yeah, and, like,
Um,
was I just, like, the side character of my story this whole time? How can I be how can we get to the main character energy?
I'd be the yeah, like from the holiday, like you gotta be the leading lady of your own life. Like, oh shit, I
Exactly.
do. Like love I think about that all the time.
Me too.
Um, so I don't know, this might be a similar answer, but I just have another question around this of like, for those high achievers whose whole identity is wrapped up in their title and their company, what's the first thing that you would say to them? Or what do you want them to know?
I would ask them, "Who are you?"
I just got chills.
Because I think, again, when people are introducing themselves, they latch onto, like, the work that they do.
Yeah.
So, that can be hard, especially when you lose that. You have to really ask yourself, like, "Well, who am I now?" Like, beyond the title and beyond this company logo that I had. So I that is the first place I start with people, like, asking that question and seeing what comes up for them.
Mm. And realizing that you actually have choice there. Who you are doesn't have to be defined for you, like, actually, you get to
Exactly.
define it for yourself. It seems like a really beautiful place to start to wrap this of going forth and asking yourself, who am I and who do I want to be? And what else do you want folks to know that perhaps you haven't shared yet? Any other words of encouragement or places to start?
Yeah, I would just say, like, if you're in this, like if you're in an in-between stage like I am at this point, like, again, know that you're not alone, and just to kinda recap a lot of what we've talked about, it's just get clear in what you want and how you wanna grow, whether it's in your career, personally, however, to live the life that you want, and to trust that intuition of yours, because it's gonna help you identify what feels right in the moment and say yes to the things that align and say no to the things that don't, and really lean on your community. I feel like that is huge in a time of uncertainty and discomfort, and connect with those that energize you and can support you through that. And again, I think I've said this a couple times, but just being open to possibilities and not feeling like you have to have the answer
Yeah.
to everything at a
Yeah.
given point. Like, we're human, we evolve day by day. And just because you don't have an answer today doesn't mean you're not going to have an answer tomorrow.
So true. Kelly, there's someone listening who wants to hear more from you, who wants to talk to you, that wants more of your brilliance and support and story. How can they connect with you?
Best way is probably through my website. So my website is kellynash.co, and then my email is kelly@kellynash.co, and then I'm on the socials, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, so they can DM me on their favorite social media of choice if that works for them too.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I'm sure that they will. And I
Thank
can't wait to continue to follow along because I know you are very much still in your meaningful middle.
you.
And it's just the beginning for you of this next chapter. And I want to thank you so much for honoring your values of authenticity and vulnerability today and sharing your brilliance and your story. I know it has helped many people. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. Appreciate you.
All right. Well, we'll talk soon as we get unfiltered again. Bye now.